New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and good morning and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here today with another wonderful episode of Growing Edge Live, a conversation with a soul-centered individual that channels their time, their talent, their energy, their resources, their creativity, their love into doing good work in the world. And that's what we do here every Monday. We have deep dive conversations and tune into the good news. And so today, my guest, you'll meet her in a minute, is Sydney Lehman Steen. And before we meet Sydney, I want to welcome you wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I know and trust that this conversation will spark something within you. You'll hear something that maybe you hadn't considered before. You will feel something that will guide you forward in your life or give you some inspiration. And if you're here for the first time, a very warm welcome. Make sure you go back and listen to some of our archived episodes. We've had some fabulous guests, and we've been broadcasting now for 2.5 years. And so there's quite a library of archived episodes. And if you're here back again because you enjoy connecting with me and with the guests and with the world of New Thought, I'm so glad that you're here. Please keep following, liking, subscribing, and sharing these episodes with your friends. So today I have a very special guest. I've known Sydney for many years now. We run in some of the same circles. We're both ordained ministers and affiliated with Anton, the affiliated New Thought Network, and with Emerson Theological Institute. Sydney is an ordained CSL and interfaith minister. She's the community spiritual leader and the spiritual minister at the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. Raised in religious science, Dr. Sydney's commitment to spirit and to cultivating the unfoldment of the divine within all people is absolute. Her dedication to inclusivity, sacred activism, and social justice informs her life, her teaching, and her speaking. Dr. Sydney is also well known in the music world as a fierce jazz pianist, keyboardist, composer, and conductor. And we'll dive into this and more. Welcome, Sydney.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And Allie, I adore you. So I love seeing your shining face. It's lovely. So thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Me too. It's been a while. It's been a month or so now, 2 months since we were together at Unity Village. And I'm so glad you said yes. And I'm so glad to have this. It feels very personal to have this conversation. But I know we're sharing it with the world. And so I'm looking forward to knowing more about how you got to be where you are right now.
Okay.
And the work that you're doing in the world. And I know that our guests, our viewers, will enjoy getting to know you too. So let's dive in.
Okay. Well, should I just start speaking, or do you want to launch me with a question? What would you like?
Well, I'd like to know where you grew up, where were you born, and how was your childhood?
I was born in Santa Monica, California, and grew up in Manhattan Beach and then Newport Beach when my mom took my brother and me and moved to Newport, which is where all the newly separated and divorced women went during the late 60s with their children, for some whatever reason. And it was the tradition. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mom found New Thought, found a religious science church. And it was just a small, well, Newport at the time was just this little sleepy beach community, not at all what you see on TV now, but it was just this kind of just small insular place. And it was beautiful. But she found this church, and so she took me, and there were probably only 40 or 50 people on a Sunday. But what I remember that very first day was standing and many churches saying, "Let there be peace on earth" at the end of the service. And this minister, Eleanor Jackson, little short fireball, kind of firebrand, whatever that expression is, with red hair, kind of teased and put up, and former Roman Catholic, really, really just like on it. And she always wore this gold robe when she preached. Never out of it. Never wore, normal clothes like we all do now. But as she walked down from the pulpit through the congregation to the back of the church at the end of the service, as we do, and people, raise their arms for her to walk under sort of this human archway. As she walked past me, she reached out, and so she's going one way and I'm facing the other, and she, with her hand, just happened to just graze my belly, and I felt a jolt of electricity go through me. It was this whoa thing. And I kind of went, okay, well, that's different. I think you got me. Whatever it is, you got me. And I continued on that path, mostly religious science, occasionally straying over into unity. But for me, the directness and the imminence and the probably the intensity of some of these religious science churches was what really lifted me, even as a kid, pre-adolescent, adolescent. And what I remember too is she often had these amazing speakers come in, whether it was as a guest speaker or installation, ordination, getting her doctor. So Joseph Murphy, I remember him when I was a kid, and Tom Johnson, Tom Costa, they were part of an installation, ordination, whatever. It sort of blurs now which one was which at that time. And they were there. They were always in that radar. And I grew up with these people as influences and as teachers. And I remember probably when I was in my early teens going to the Redondo Beach Church when they dedicated their building. And so here's Frank Richelieu and here's Anita Richelieu. And so I was young, and I remembered that all of these things impacted me. And every morning I would wake up and listen. At the time, there were always these radio broadcasts on local radio, local AM radio. So I would always start my day, from the time I was 11 years old up until the time I left home and went to college, listening to just all of these wonderful teachers, all of them, all the time. And it just got so, it just became a part of my tapestry. I was a musician. I am a musician. And early on, it wasn't about a spiritual path for me. It was just, I wanted to be a jazz musician. I wanted to be an old black jazz musician, really, a man, because they played better than everybody else. And I thought, well, that's probably not going to happen. And so, but I dedicated myself to becoming a really, really good jazz pianist. And I was very fortunate. Early on, I broke through some glass ceilings, and I got to play with people like Dizzy Gillespie, and I subbed for Stan Kenton at one time. And I mean, I did a lot of things that are pretty, as I look back, I think, wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. I got to do that. And I became a very skilled also keyboard player, in that I would frequently be called to play in local, not local, but traveling Broadway theater that would show up at the Schubert Theater, the Amundsen Theater, to be in the pit with the theater orchestras as the keyboard sub. And so, which is a tremendously challenging, stressful thing. But I prided myself on having ice water in my veins, which wasn't true. Because I would come home with, I was telling a friend last night, I said, I look back, I had a lot of migraines back then.
Mhm.
There were times I sweated off 2 or 3 pounds or stressed off 2 or 3 pounds, but I was really, really good at it until I decided my house is paid for. I don't need to do this anymore. And that was when I was getting involved in full-time ministry and music directing. I just did not need to be in that situation. It was no longer something that excited me. It just wasn't working. So I moved into full-time ministry. And I have always just loved it. I believe in the power of affirmative prayer, that which we call spiritual mind treatment. It is my favorite thing to do. It is my favorite thing to teach. And I know clearly I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of powerful people. I am so clear on that because I can look back to different teachers I've had or conferences I went to, and I have my notes. I can instantly take myself back to 1985, first to Silomar, where I have in my journals notes from teachers who, like Robert Bitzer and all of these people who have been long since transitioned. And I can see a phrase or something that they said. I went, okay, that's my talk this week. And it instantly transports me into this place of this. I know exactly what I need to do, what I need to say. And I often call them my mentors in spirit. So,
well,
we
hold on.
moved-
You
yeah.
have shared so much. I mean, goodness me. Growing up, did you say 9 years old or
I think I
7
was
years
about 9. Yeah, probably
Yeah.
about 9. Yeah.
That must have been because many of us didn't come to science of mind or new thought until we were adults.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how that influenced you in your regular life, like going to school and having
Yeah.
friends. And
Yeah.
was that because, and you mentioned listening to New Thought or something
Yeah, yeah.
positive on the radio. How did that impact you? Because a lot of us we weren't exposed to that kind of positivity, that kind of religious or spiritual experience at a
Yeah.
young age. And growing up in Newport, I was just down the way a bit, down in South Laguna. And so I remember that whole area. Newport was where we go to the movies on a Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So how was that? How did that influence you as a child in school? Because you've got so much energy. I mean, we've just experienced 10 minutes of just a fire hose of energy and information. Yeah. So how did that show up or affect your friends, your experience as a young one?
So, great question. I was always very self-confident. I've mostly been fearless in my life, or if there's been fear, I've pushed through it and said, well, I can do this, I can do this. I probably was as neurotic and screwed up as any teen, but it didn't go all the way down to the marrow of my bones like it does with most. So I remember being a brat to my mom. I remember being insecure in college. I remember all of that stuff, but I always came back to, okay, I got to pray now. I got to come back. There's one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And over and over and over and over, because it was so much a part of me. And yeah, so the insecurities were there. The wanting to be accepted, oh, my friends have boyfriends, I don't, or that person plays piano a lot better than I do. I want to play better than that, and it was all of that. The self-comparison stuff was all still there. The crazy teen stuff was all still there, but I think that it was not as cellular.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
wasn't as, and again, I'm sure I remember being a brat to my mom. I can remember saying and doing things like every teen does, but I could always come back.
Yeah, I'm getting a sense that if you're exposed to teachings of science of mind, of oneness, of knowing who you truly are as a child of the universe, of knowing that your thoughts create, and all these things that as adults we have a full grasp of, but as a child, to have that as your primary identity, it must be very helpful. I'm seeing
Yeah.
clearly that yes, you could get sucked into that personality and keeping up with your peers and,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
comparison and all of that. But just knowing who you really are and having that to come back to as a
Yeah.
touchstone. And then also having all of these amazing, and you dropped so many names about, of New Thought leaders and ministers in the area back in those days. That must have been extremely helpful to have those role models, to have that teaching, and to be secure in your spiritual identity. Must
It,
have been
yeah,
really
it was
helpful.
very anchoring. And
Mhm.
especially if I was unanchored, like I said, I could always find my way back. So it's not that I didn't have all of the crazy stuff that kids and teens go through. Um, there was always something more that was over here that I would be able to kind of, okay, I know there's more. I know there's more. And even if it wasn't a conscious movement back, it always was a spiritual movement or pulled me back.
Yeah. So these days, we're hearing a lot about the younger generation using the word manifest a lot. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah, yeah.
And in our, parlance, we have, understood how to manifest or materialize things. And although that's not so much at the forefront in our teaching these days, it's definitely a part of creating the life that we want to experience. And so as a kid, did you have an understanding of how to manifest?
Oh my God, how did you're sort of reading my mind here. I love that you brought that up. I haven't thought about this in years. I remember my mom coming home from a class, and I must have been in junior high or high school. And she talked about creating a treasure map or a wheel of fortune, which was a visualization tool we used to use, where for us it was like a circle, a wheel of fortune, I think they called it. And she said, yeah, it's really interesting. You put yourself in the middle so you know that it's you, or you put spirit in the middle. It's like a pie, and you have these. And so I immediately went up to my room and created this thing. And I put it on my wall so I'd see it just as I went out every day. And it had the different sections. And I think at least in one, maybe two sections, there was, and even though I knew you're not supposed to like specifically outline, person, place, that kind of thing, how it happens. I had such a crush on this guy, and I had him in two sections on this circle, and the visualization, and we never got together, but it's so funny because I can remember this, but it had aspects about, it probably didn't have anything academically because I had that handled, but it mostly probably was hormonal, the crushes I had on people and wanting to be a better musician, and very just ego material, but it always made me feel better to see that and to know that, but always putting God at the center. That word manifest has interesting, I don't want to say triggers, but it is an interesting word because it brings me back immediately to the idea of kingdom one consciousness. Of, first of all, everything's happening to me. And then we move from that to kingdom two consciousness, which is life is happening from me. I am causing this. I am creating this. And many people don't ever go beyond that. And they call themselves great manifestors, great create. And I always sort of go, well, but it's happening through you. So let's move beyond that into a greater place. Because when I see, and I don't think it's as much as it was as in the 80s and 90s, where everybody talked about, well, I'm manifesting this, I'm manifesting that. And I would think, but you're not. It's consciousness. You're not the one doing the work. You're doing the one creating the magnet for it and the conditions and the belief, but you're not the one actually doing it. And so that's an interesting word in my world. I always try to gently bring my students and my community into a greater understanding of co-creation or demonstration, so let's go beyond, manifesting parking places.
Yeah, exactly. But as
Yeah.
you're saying that, and I'm visualizing your Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm seeing the boy's name on there. I'm seeing some piano, some musician things. And you're right. It's not about manifesting things. It's about building the consciousness for those things.
Right.
And so I'm knowing, as you're sharing your stories, that you as a child and a young adult were building the consciousness specifically for your musical ability. Where a lot of us at teenage years aren't as focused in on building those kinds of skills. There's probably more boys' names and items, clothes items, and other things on the wheel. And so I'm imagining that having that degree of awareness about how focus of attention and being able to create or be a co-creator must have been very supportive for you in building your consciousness around music. So talk a little bit about that. I'm a painter artist. You're a musician. And I know it's been a part of my entire life, is understanding how to bring the invisible into time and space. So to create things through us. And so how did that awareness as a child, focusing in on your musical talents and abilities and growing the consciousness for that, how did that work for you when you were learning piano or other instruments or learning to write or whatever you did? I'd like to know about your creative process there.
I saw other people doing what I wanted to do. And I thought, well, how do I get there? And so while I know a lot of my friends spent the summers at the beach, I got bored at the beach. So I'd be at home practicing and memorizing Miles Davis solos. I'd be at home transcribing Charlie Parker solos. That's what I was doing, and learning to play them on piano. I was practicing a lot. That was my discipline. And because I'd see what somebody else did to get where they were. And I thought, well, so that's what I do. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it came about the same way when I knew it was time to become a minister. Before I had even found what that path was going to look like, I was already a practitioner, but before I even knew what that was, my decision shifted everything, just like that, like literally overnight. And my perspective became, what does a minister do? What does a minister do? And so living in that vision, just living in and as that vision before it had even, so the discipline of spiritual practice, the discipline of creating order in my home office, the discipline of beginning to gather topics and information, the discipline of finding all of those ways in which I needed to build that muscle. So it became living as. and the same thing with practicing and learning music and that discipline. And I was a music major. I was a commercial music major. Actually, my bachelor's is in music theory. And I studied with a composer in Baltimore and lived in that area about 7 years. And I used to, because I thought, well, and it wasn't a conservatory, but it was a really good music school. So I used to lock myself in his office when he went home for the day, and I would practice literally 6 or 7 hours every single day. And when I ran out of stuff to work on, I would open up his file cabinets and I'd pull out music that, like a Barry Sachs part that somebody in the Stan Kenton band had played, or somebody in Don Ellis big band had played, or, so I was sight reading everything I could find, and learning how to do that. And my muscle was not around classical music. So I worked very hard on that, just for the technique and the subtlety and the touch and all of that. But I'd always come back and go, okay, well, what's Oscar Peterson doing here? what's Count Basie doing here? What's Ella Fitzgerald doing here? And so that's always what I came back to. Well, what did they do to get there? Okay, well, I'll do that. That's what I do. And so it's actually living in and as that role, that idea, that identity, before it has even come into manifestation. Don't you hate people who do that? Before it has, living in and as. And that to me is how you do it.
Yeah, that's pure and simple. Think in a certain way, act in a certain way, and get particular results. And I must say, you seem to have been very disciplined, very focused, very passionate about your craft. And so no wonder you have done what you've done and achieved and got to play in those places that not everyone was invited to go to.
Oh my God. Yeah. I look back and I think, wow. I think I appreciated it at the time. And actually, I know I appreciated it at the time. And I look back now and I appreciate it even more. The fact that I was exposed to stuff and got to play with certain musicians. And I always put myself in a situation musically where the players were better than I was. So I might walk in the door in absolute terror. I did that a lot, but I thought, I'm rising up to the occasion. I can't let, never see them see you. They can't see you sweat, so I just kind of walk in all cocky. How's it going? And I wasn't like an obnoxious, egomaniac, but I just come in and act like I belong there.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I might be going, ah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that way, especially as performers or speakers. Doing it afraid, that's part of the whole process. So who would you say, we've got a couple minutes before we go to our break. In those early days, who stands out as a significant influence? Would it be parents? Would it be school teachers, other musicians? Was there someone that you could point to now that really affected you as a young man?
Yeah. Teachers, both just regular teachers. I had some really, really great teachers in high school. I had an English teacher who was wonderful, who pushed us and pushed us and pushed us, and a history teacher. But I also had a music teacher that I'd had from junior high into high school, who was a taskmaster. He was very much like that teacher in the movie Whiplash, which was, that guy bordered on abusive. This teacher was not that for me, Mr. Schroeder, Vernon Schroeder, but he's the one who first took me aside. It was on a Thanksgiving Day, my junior year. And he said, we need to talk. You need to get serious about your music. You have a lot more to accomplish and you need to get serious now. And I went home and cried for 2 hours.
Wow.
So teachers, always teachers. The teacher that I studied with when I went to Baltimore, Hank Levy, known as just an incredible legendary icon in the realm of what we call odd time music, odd meter music, and complicated, but he was just like this vibrant guy he reminded me of George C. Scott, always with his pipe, and he had this raspy voice, and I would think, wow, I want to be like Hank with that energy and that vibrancy for life. And I remember after visiting the campus where he taught, Towson State University, I came home and I started doing what he did. He would get up every morning at 5 a.m. and go down to his studio and write. And meanwhile, his wife would be upstairs, fixing coffee, whatever. So when I got home, the very day I got home, I got up at 5 a.m. and I was practicing every morning at 5 a.m., which was not unusual for me. But I thought, well, Hank does it, so I'll do it. So it was always teachers who got me. Always.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back and we will continue our conversation with Shirley Steen.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
And we are back with Sydney. So you had an opportunity a couple of years ago to take this new role, this new position for you. It's not new now, but it was then, at the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. Mm-hmm. And you talked about overcoming some of your insecurities that, as you moved along in your music career and such. What happened when you started considering this position? I'd love to hear what that journey was for you as you stepped into this role, because I think you came back to the LA area,
yes,
from elsewhere. So
yeah.
How was that? It feels like a bit of a full circle moment and stepping into some big shoes. So
definitely.
How was that for you?
So I originally got licensed as a practitioner at the North Hollywood Church in 2000. And in 2000, and let me back up a little bit. In 1999, my husband and I adopted a baby in Russia, little boy. And as he was growing up, we decided we wanted to raise him in a place that was a little bit less population dense. And so we left LA, we moved to Oregon in 2004. And we had a place that was up on a mountain, on Mountaintop Road. in Newberg, Oregon, which is southwest of Portland. And we lived there and raised this wonderful kid who's now 27. Um, um, in where he could stay out and play in we had some acreage that was just old grow trees. And, the biggest risk was coyotes and deer. And we had neighbors and there were wild blueberries. I mean, it was really, really amazing. The experience was amazing. And I became the music director at Unity of Portland. And then when I became a minister, they offered me the role of associate minister as a religious science minister in Unity Church, which is really fantastic. They changed the bylaws and tweaked this and tweaked that. And so I got to work in great partnership with the minister there, senior minister Lisa Davis, who had grown up similar to the way I grew up. Her mom had been a minister. So as a little girl, she was exposed to all of this. She also had adopted 2 girls from Russia about the same time we adopted our son. So about the same age, we had this very similar upbringing. And we married Science of Mind with Unity principles all the time. So every time I worked on something that Ernest Holmes had said, I brought in Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and it was the most rich experience. So I started candidating, and this was during quarantine. And candidating during a national lockdown, was very interesting. I candidated at a number of centers. And the one that I was a finalist for was one in where the hell, Capistrano, where Alice Reed is there now. And so I guess she and I were both the finalists. And as I was looking at that, and at the time my mentor was the teacher and spiritual leader for the North Hollywood Church, and he and I would talk once a month, Mark Vieira, Dr. Mark Vieira. And he's kind of a rock star in the movement in CSL, and before that United. And so one day, and he knew I was candidating, and we were talking, he said, oh my gosh, I just realized I have a staff meeting. I'll call you back in an hour. He came back and he said, well, our assistant minister just announced he's retiring. Would you ever consider coming back here? And I said, well, here's, wow, yes. And here's the financial thing. Here's the package at Capistrano. Can we do that? And he looked at it, he goes, yeah, I think we can do that. So talk it over with your husband and let me know what you think. So he and I sat down, and I had learned this thing called, is it a full body yes? Is it a full body no? And so we sat down to meditate about it. And so I just started contemplating, okay, if I see a yes for Capistrano, which I thought, I really want this. It's South Orange County. I grew up in Newport Beach. I know the environment and the culture, and, it'll be fun to come back to Newport, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And I started scanning the yes on my body, and it got right up to about my waist. And then there was a block. I mean, and I'm not a woo-woo kind of gal. And then it started again. I got the yes again from the head up. I thought, well, that's interesting. So then I started scanning, what would a yes to North Hollywood feel like? And immediately my whole body, I had goosebumps or God bumps, truth bumps, whatever you want to call them, from the tip of my toes all the way up to above my head. And I went, oh, well, that's it. And my husband, later we talked about it. He said, oh, crap, I knew immediately when Dr. Mark called that we were going to be packing boxes. And we were. So we went back, and I onboarded as the assistant minister, knowing that he would be retiring in about 3 years. So we looked at a 3-year onboard, which was really brilliant. It was so smart because it allowed me to first of all, to become known to the community, for me to know the community, and to begin to really see, is this something I want, which I did. But it also it trained me in such a strong way about leadership, about what's involved, what I needed to know. It grew me tremendously, so that when he finally stepped away, I was as ready as someone could be, because we knew we weren't going to do a candidating process for this. In my understanding, it can be challenging to a community, and it can be financially hard for a community. So I was a known quantity at that point, and people were very accepting. There were a few who didn't. That's, okay, thank you for sharing. Perhaps your good waits for you elsewhere. Go to it quickly, because I'm not leaving. Or stay here and, forgive me, and let's see what we can do. And some of them didn't. They left. That's what happens. But so that I moved into full on leadership when he retired. And it's been very educating. Every minister, I think, comes out of ministerial training, and you think, oh, wow, I'm going to teach principle, and I'm going to be speaking and inspiring and doing all of this. The main thing that I got right away was, no, the most important thing is creating community. That's, if you do nothing else, create a safe place for people to come and be a big family. So lots of opportunities for that. And then the next thing is, yeah, you're going to be teaching, but it's not the big percentage that you'd like to think it is. And so the majority of people come in, as and they feel good for an hour, maybe another half hour on the patio where we have coffee and donuts or whatever. And then they might make it to the parking lot. And then they get out in the world. And by the time our Wednesday midweek comes, they need to be lifted up. And then by the time you come around Sunday, okay, well, I'm ready to be lifted up again. So I call it, we have the toe dippers and we have the soul swimmers.
Okay.
The majority of communities, I think, are toe dippers. They dip their toes in the pool. They might even splash around in the shallow end, but the soul swimmers, that's going to be maybe 10%, maybe a little bit more. They're the ones who dive in, and they really want to get wet. The rest of the people don't want to get wet. They'd like to swim, but they don't want to get wet. In other words, they want to manifest. But the change in the growth that initiates you, that's they're not wanting it. And I get that, because really what people want is community. So I have learned how to be this big container for all of it. And it's not always easy. I've had to become a financial manager. And we have a wonderful board. Oh my God. And we have people who have been trained in accounting, and they're also practitioners. So they have lots of consciousness. And yet at the same time, there's a lot of shit to deal with.
There is a lot when you're in that position of spiritual director of a spiritual community. So what do you tell us a little bit about your community and what you're feeling that your community really enjoys, and do you have any personal sort of private agendas with with focus areas within your community?
So we have moved from a community of a lot of people who look a lot like me, or the older version of me. In other words, a lot of white people, into being a community. And it wasn't fully white people, but it has grown and expanded. So the demographic has happily exceeded that and gone well beyond. When we were blessed to cross paths with this guy named Skip Jennings, who is a minister, who is the most wonderful minister of color. He's gay. He checks so many boxes, and he's inspiring. I mean, checks the boxes because he's inspiring and he's masterful and he's fun and smart, and we laugh a lot. So when he came into our community as the assistant minister, we attract what we are. So happily, we are attracting lots of people who are enthusiastic and energetic and look like him, look like me. This sounds like the worst racist discussion ever, but it feels safer now for people who, for BIPOC, for Black, Indigenous people of color. And we have more people who are perhaps Latino, or they are Filipino, or they are Asian, or they are East Asian. All of this has turned into more of a representative of what our country looks like, which makes me very happy. So I continue to grow that. And it's all about the energy, and it's all about the intention, the spiritual integrity. The goal for this community is to continue to grow it. We are shifting from being the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science, because people hear that word or see that word church on our sign. They start to pull in and they go, oh, I can't do church. Too much baggage from the past, too much damage. So this next year, and I've been moving our community into this awareness. We've been using a tagline for a year and a half. That is, we are welcome to the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science, a oneness community, a oneness center for spiritual living. And so as we move into January, February, we will legally begin, because we've got the name set up and now we're doing the DBAs and everything. We will be the North Hollywood Oneness Center for Spiritual Living. North Hollywood, we're the Oneness Center.
Nice.
And that's the goal.
Nice.
To have more and more experiences that are trans-religious, beyond religious, to more spiritual experiences, interfaith, intrafaith experiences, and anything that will help people to feel connected. If we can create connection and community, then that's really, really what I want to see happen. And of course, to teach principle, but community first. Yeah.
So you've got classes going on, I would assume, and you've got events, because I know both of you and Skip, who I met at Unity, are musical.
Yeah.
And so there's events at your center. Do you have like focus projects or ways of working in your physical, in your greater area? What kind of things are people interested in doing at their place of worship and inspiration? Because I know that seems to be kind of the growing edge of a lot of spiritual communities. It's not just about what's going on at church. It's not just about what they're learning. It's not just about potlucks and community events, but it's also making a difference in the greater community.
I am so glad you brought that up. We do outreach, we do inreach. And right now we have people who are within the community, not just outside the community, who are dealing with the after effects of losing their SNAP benefits, of the government shutdown, all of that nonsense. And so we created access for people to get groceries and to get the money that they need so they can survive. But we also have a really broad outreach program. We do a thing once a month, every third Sunday. We feed a lot of people who are dealing with being unhoused and have food insecurity. And we set up at a small home community for people who were formerly like it's bridge housing, basically going from homeless to being employed to being housed. And so we do that once a month, and the participation is magnificent. We feed anywhere from 60 to 85 people once a month. And one of our practitioners is also the head of the person who does this 7 days a week for the city of Los Angeles. Wow. And so we have some great, strong commitment to service, to volunteerism, and to being there, and we all bring food and help serve and make sure that there are clothes and shoes and blankets and basic life necessities. Every Christmas, we do a thing called Helping Hand Ministry, where we adopt families and children from North Valley Caring Services, which is in the Reseda Northridge area here in Southern California. This year, we are being Santa Claus to 182 children. People sign up, and they're not just like buying, here's a nice doll for you. I was on the patio yesterday. One of the guys had this killer bike for like a 13-year-old boy. And I went, oh my God, this is what we do. We buy bikes, we get not iPhones. We've done that in the past, but iPods and stuff like, we do all of that. Gift cards for the kids to go to. One year I bought, there was a family with 3 boys, so I got them all 3 really, really good skateboards. I have a son, and my brother he always said, you got to have the good trucks, meaning the wheels. Make sure you get good trucks, good trucks, good trucks. So there I was, getting skateboards rather, with really good trucks, because I know this. And so, and their families, we will supply grocery cards for $100 to each. And I think it's about 80 to 90 families that we're also making sure that they have at least $100 worth of groceries at Vallarta or, a local Safeway, whatever it is.
How can people give to this? Because I know that we can give to your center, and then this
Oh, we would love that. Yeah. Because we do pop-up things too. When we had all the fires, we were collecting food and water and all of that, and people gave. So you're going to see the website, which is going across the bottom of the screen, and it's nhcrs.org, and opportunities to give. And what people can do, it will take them directly to our Breeze page. And if they want to put a message there, to help feed people who are experiencing homelessness, or to help Christmas for children, or whatever that is, you can give to specific ministries or just to our general fund. Our general fund is, of course, always the best way to give, because that way we can look at what needs allocating right now, and we can allocate that. But if they go to nhcrs.org, and they can absolutely give. And that's awesome. Thank you so much. During the fires last January, we had many people, many communities donating blankets, sending blankets. I had a friend of mine who is not a spiritual religious person, anything else. He sent a whole bunch of blankets from Amazon to us so that we could give them to victims of the fires rather. And we collected so much, and we had communities tithing to us saying, wow, you're doing so much. This will help. Hope this will help. Hope this will help. So we always tithe. We always tithe. I think it's what kept us going during COVID, because we had to really curtail everything we're doing, but we're still tithing at, right across the board, 10%. We have our ties to the universe. We support Kaleidoscope Child, which is David Alt's organization that is helping to build wells and feed children in Cambodia, in India, all over the world. We support the animal ministries. We support World Central Kitchen. Anything that we look at that has a need, we look at that. We do a lot for children. If we can't be the ones who show up and have our feet right there on the ground, then we're the ones who we will absolutely. The LA Regional Food Bank, the local food banks, anything to do with the environment. So yeah, we are very active and trying to be more active beyond the walls of the community.
Thank you for being the boots on the ground, because a lot of us live in, much smaller lives and don't know how to make a difference. And so to hear you sharing all the ways that your community is organizing to support local and non-local is really wonderful. Congratulations, Sydney.
Thank you.
All of that you're doing.
I feel so blessed and honored that we do that. And it's absolutely a we. And we have this board, our board of trustees is a very high consciousness, and that helps a lot. So, yeah.
So what do you see in the world in general, outside of North Hollywood and the LA and California? What do you see going on in the world these days that you at your center are beginning to focus on or see a need? What are you thinking of directing some of your new creative energy toward?
Peace, sanctuary, food. We are unashamedly, unabashedly, unapologetically a sanctuary. I have put signs all over the outside of the church on the gate that say no weapons allowed, no ice allowed. Ice will not be tolerated here. I created manuals and made 22 copies of them, and they're all over the church. First responder, what to do if ICE tries to all of that. We immediately put an immigration lawyer on retainer before the Orange Man was even installed in office as our quote unquote president. Yeah, you can hear my contempt right there, only because of what I see, the damage that has happened to people who are being marginalized. And I pray for this man every single day. Please know that I bless and pray. And at the same time, I see the effects of marginalization and hate and fascism. So I will speak very boldly to that, and it will absolutely piss people off, and they tend to leave, and I'm okay with that. I have to say though, creating a safe space means also for people who disagree, but we have to have dialogue. So I want to make sure that we are creating, first of all, a space of protection for people who don't have protections.
So I can't even imagine. I've seen a few things on the internet about, people being taken, being deported, having come here myself. I know how scary it is to the thought of being sent back somewhere when you may not have any family there.
Right.
So what are you seeing? And you underscore the word sanctuary.
Yeah.
What do you say to those that are in that much fear of leaving?
One of the things we help to, we pray first, and I get centered first, and also, stay in touch with us. What is it you need? Do you need to be at my house? Do you need to be at someone else's house? I know that tangentially no one directly in our community, but one degree of separation beyond, people have been taken back to somewhere else, deported, not to the country from where they came, as you were saying, but maybe somewhere that, absolutely nowhere near where their origins and their family of origins might be. Families of origin. So, and also, what do you need? What do you need? And do you need protection? Do you need to be, because what we realize is the courts right now are just too confused, and they're not safe. So all I can do is offer a safe space. And if they find themselves in jeopardy, to reach out to us, and we will see what we need to do for that.
Yeah.
And for them to see what we can do. As I said, we put a lawyer on retainer right away who deals specifically with immigration rights and citizenship. And having done that, most of what we have her there for can't be done right now. That was following a path to citizenship or green card. And now a lot of people show up to court and they're, for their green card hearings, and they're being arrested. So yeah, it's a scary thing, but we do, the protest thing is and demonstration thing, because we're very active with that. And I sort of feel at some point I want to get a whole bunch of inflatable unicorn and frog costumes for people to use at their next demonstration, because I think that's a really, really great way to show up and not threaten anybody, and yet show your this is what we believe, and don't mess with us. Don't mess with the inflatable frog, because I mean it.
Well, Sydney, we're right at the top of the hour.
Okay.
I thank you so much for doing all that you do to support those that need sanctuary, to support those that are on their spiritual journey. I know that your community is blessed to have you as their spiritual.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being my friend, and thank you for being here.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I really, really am. And I have to say too, thank you for saying they're blessed to have me, but I am so blessed to have them. These people are just the most remarkable family anyone could have. And I adore this community that I'm a part of. So thank you.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sydney. Thank you to New Thought Media Network and our sponsor, the Satya Center. See you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.